The road to love is exciting, funny, and sometimes can even be heartbreaking. But in the end, it'll all be worth it. Join me on my journey to love. Hey everybody, it's LaRonda and I'm back with another video. And as you may have noticed, I've been gone for a few weeks. The last few weeks I've been spending some time in the Dominican Republic. As you know from a previous video that I will link in the description, that I had a relationship with a man back in the mid to late 2000s. Mid to late 2000s, where I got married and had a son with a man in the Dominican Republic. And so we go back there so that my son can see his dad, and that's where I've been for the last 3 weeks. And it's not very convenient to make videos over there where I was, so I haven't been online making videos, but I'm back. And so in those few weeks, and you know, I haven't been dating specifically, like going out on dates. I did do a little bit of swiping in the Dominican Republic, but like, as you know, I'm a little bit leery of dating men in the Dominican Republic just because of my previous experience and the things that I've seen living there in the past and going there on a lot of different vacations and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of stuff, so that's kind of a road that I wouldn't go down again. And that's just my personal feeling about it. So I didn't do any going out on any dates. I did do some chatting with a man who is from Ireland, and he's planning on moving to Puerto Rico. He's been currently living in the Dominican Republic for several months and is planning to move over to my island. So maybe when he gets here sometime in August, if you know, if the stars align, maybe we'll meet up and have a date or whatever. But you know, that's the only person that I've been talking to over there. But I want to tell you about a date that I went on this Saturday, and a phone date that I had this weekend. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this must be my 12th or 13th first date of the year. And this is a local man. So before I left to go to the Dominican Republic, I met this guy on Tinder. And we were talking a little bit before he left, and we had a video chat. One of the things he had said to me was that he didn't get a lot of matches, which I found to be interesting because, I mean, you know, he was a guy that seemed pretty decent. Like, I mean, he wasn't like some kind of Adonis, but like, I mean, I thought he would get some matches. He wasn't terrible looking or anything like that. And obviously I swiped on him. You know, I wasn't like, oh my God, this is the most handsome man I've ever seen, but he seemed like a decent man, you know. So anyway, we talked a little bit over the Tinder, and he had wanted to get my number, you know, pretty quickly into it. And I was about to tell you, so one of the things he had said was that he doesn't get a lot of matches and all of that kind of stuff, which kind of, I don't know, it put something into my mind about him, like maybe like, you know, it just kind of made me say, you know what I mean? So anyway, I didn't want to exchange numbers with him because, as you know, I don't like to exchange numbers with people on the first conversation. Like, we've been talking for 5 minutes. Like, I don't know you. You don't know me. I don't know if you're crazy. I don't know if you're going to be calling me at 2 o'clock in the morning or what. So I told him, listen, we can do a video chat through Tinder. And so we did one, and he was okay. But the conversation for me wasn't like, oh my God, this is great conversation. I'm so excited and looking forward to talking to this person again, or I'm feeling so attracted to him over this video chat that I can't wait to meet him. It was just like, oh, okay, you know, whatever. And I told him, okay, so I'm going to be going away for 3 weeks. So if we can manage to stay in touch over these next 3 weeks, and I'd be more than happy to meet up with you when I get back to the island. So we chatted a little bit and even talked on the phone once while I was in the Dominican Republic. And again, the conversation was not very exciting for me. Like, I'm looking for somebody that I feel so comfortable with, that we have a lot of witty banter and we're just chatting back and forth and getting to know each other and asking each other questions and all that stuff. But one of the things I kind of noticed about him, even on this phone conversation, is that sometimes I would be talking and he would cut me off to sometimes say something that wasn't even necessarily related to what we were actually talking about. And as you know, I think I've said this in videos before, is I don't like when people cut me off. I hate it. So anyway, I was like, okay, you know, we talked on the phone for a little bit, and then I kind of was cutting the conversation short, and I was like, well, you know, well, it was nice talking to you, talk to you later, blah, 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 and we never spoke again. He occasionally would text me, and I would respond back, but then we kind of stopped because I wasn't really interested in, you know, having these like, hi, how are you? Hi, I hope you're having a great day. Like, this kind of conversation from through text doesn't excite me at all. So I'm not so fast to respond back to this kind of conversation. So anyway, we didn't talk much, but then I told him I would be back on the 22nd. And so he messaged me on the 22nd and asked me if I wanted to hang out this weekend. So obviously he didn't forget about me. And so I was like, okay, sure, fine. Let's go out on Saturday at 3. So we met up at this little place over in the section of the island called Catano. And it's like an ocean front. You can see from here, from Catano, you can see Old San Juan and the ocean and, you know, all of that stuff. So it's a nice little place. And we went to this restaurant called Dante. I guess it's Danteyo. But anyway, the food was really good. But first, I met him at this coffee shop because it was raining. We were supposed to just go to Catano and meet at the ferry depot, but it was raining most of the day. So I said, well, we better find some place to like duck into so that we, you know, if it's raining the rest of the afternoon, we're just not outside walking around in the rain. So I had suggested this coffee spot. And we got there, they didn't have coffee, and he wanted a beer and they didn't have beer. So we just left there and went to this other restaurant. And we got some outside seating, which was overlooking, you know, you could see kind of the water and all of that. So it was a nice romantic place. But, you know, once I met him in person, like, he was a little shorter than I expected, which is not really a problem because I was wearing flats that day, so it wasn't a big deal. But the way he was dressed wasn't like the kind of way that I would like a man to be dressed. Like, I mean, I was all, you know, kind of dolled up. I had, you know, a little, of course my hair was braided, and I had a little, I guess you could call it a scully, but it had like a little sequin thing. So it was, you know, kind of on the side of my face like this, and my makeup was nice, and I had a cute dress and everything. So like, I put some effort into what I had on, and he just had on a regular old button-down shirt that looked like maybe he didn't really iron it. It wasn't tucked in, and he had on these giant pants, and they looked kind of, you know, he wasn't really put together. And then he had on these shoes that looked kind of like those old man orthopedic type sneakers. I don't know. Anyway, he didn't draw my attention or like make me feel like, oh my God, because I've had, like I said, I've had moments where I've met up with people who I wasn't necessarily attracted to over the internet or over the seeing their pictures or any of that stuff, but then got in person with them and I was like pleasantly surprised at how attracted to them I was. But this was not the case in this particular time. But anyway, like as things go, I always try to make the best of it. Like, listen, I'm out. I may as well try to have a good time with this guy. And, as much as possible, instead of like making it awkward and, being all standoffish because I'm not attracted to him, let's just have conversation and chit chat or whatever. So anyway, we got to the restaurant, ordered the food, we're having drinks and stuff. And just talking and whatnot. But then there got to be a time where the conversation kind of just lulled. And, I was not really necessarily in the mood for trying to fill in the blanks. I tried to in some instances, but, there was a time where we were just silent for a good bit of time. And the same thing happened to us when we were over the phone, but then I went ahead and just ended the conversation. So anyway, the food came, the food was really delicious. Like, I enjoyed my food very much. It took forever to get there, but the food was really good once it did come. And, other than that, we, after we had our food and everything, we left the restaurant and went to kind of walk on the part that's like next to the ocean, going back towards the cars where we had originally parked. And, I noticed that he had kind of reached out and like touched the back of my neck. You know how you like might squeeze the back of somebody's neck or whatever. He did me one of those numbers and I was like, oh boy, because I knew I was not at all interested in touching him. I hadn't touched him the whole day. I hadn't tried to get close to him or anything. And I think that he knew the date was kind of winding down. So like, I think that was his first foray into like testing the waters to see what would happen or if I would be, interested in that. And I kind of just, didn't really respond to it at all. Cause like I said, I wasn't interested. So we keep walking and talking. And, as we're getting closer to the cars, he's like, oh, are we ending this already? And I'm like completely ready to end it and wondering how could he not be on the same page, especially since we had long moments of silence during our date. And I mean, granted, I didn't feel that awkward about it because I think I didn't have any feelings for him at all. Like, I think that if I was having this awkward silence with somebody that I was actually interested in, it would have been a different story. But in this case, I wasn't interested in him, so like the silence wasn't awkward. It was just like, I don't even feel like putting in too much effort to fill in the spaces. And so anyway, as we got to my car, he gave me a hug, which I was perfectly fine with. But then, like, how as you're pulling back from the hug, you end up kind of with your faces face to face. And he's like, kiss, and I'm like, no, not today. No. And he was like, oh, you noticed I asked first. And I'm like, yeah, thank God he asked first. Because if he had actually tried it, like, I mean, I wasn't into him at all. Like, there was nothing about him that made me feel like I wanted to kiss him, and I'm really I guess I'm a little bit surprised that he thought that we should kiss. Like, I don't know, like maybe all the times where he was being silent, maybe that's what he was pondering the whole time. I don't know. Like, I have no idea why he even thought that was going to be a thing. So anyway, we ended the date. He told me he would text me later on that evening, and he did. But, for me, it was just like, And so we haven't really, I mean, we've spoken, like we've texted a little bit, but for me, it hasn't been initiated by me. So I'm really not interested, and I think that I'm probably gonna, if he texts me another time, I'm probably just gonna go ahead and let him know, like, listen, I didn't think we had any chemistry, and while I do appreciate the time we spent, and I had a nice time, talking to you, getting to know who you are and whatever, talking about his travels and stuff like that. Because I mean, sometimes we did have decent conversation, but it's just the times where you're talking and he just busts in with something else. One time he even busted in and like changed the subject, and I'm like, who does that? Like when you're talking about one thing and he, cuts me off of what I'm saying and starts talking about something completely different. It was just weird. I don't like that. And I often think about that as like when I'm going on a first date with a guy, everybody knows that I'm looking for somebody that I can think about spending the rest of my life with. And if I'm talking about having a conversation with somebody, and is this going to be what the rest of my life is going to be about, like with somebody just constantly changing the subject or talking over me or whatever the case is, and I'm like, nah, that ain't gonna work for me. Sad. So then the other date that I had, which was not really, it was more of a phone date. So real quick, I'll tell you the story of that one. Back in January of 2020, before the pandemic and everything, I was in Philadelphia visiting my family, and I was swiping on Bumble at the time, and I was swiping and met on Bumble this man who is living in Philadelphia, but he's from Algeria. And we talked a little bit, and we eventually exchanged numbers, and we were supposed to talk, but I was really busy that time. Like this wasn't like one of those trips that I was on where I was just kind of laying around leisurely. I was still working and also helping my family who was going through some health situations at the time. So it was kind of busy for me, and I didn't have a whole lot of time nor personal space to have an actual conversation with somebody that I could have been interested in at that time. So it just really didn't work out. But then what I noticed was once I gave him my number, like instead of, how there's some guys that, when you don't answer the phone, they'll keep calling you and texting you or whatever. And that kind of stuff is sort of a red flag for me, because like I'm the kind of person that if I call you once and you don't answer, I'm not going to keep calling you back to back to back to back to back, or, leaving you messages and all of this stuff over and over again. I'll just wait until you call me back. But he I just kind of felt like it was a little aggressive. So like I kind of stepped back from it. But I don't know what it is, but on that night, after I got back home from that date, I was looking at my Bumble and I was thinking to myself, maybe I should message that man just to see, what he's up to. Maybe, something has changed. Maybe he's different. I don't know. Maybe we'll actually get a chance to talk this time and I can see what kind of person he is. So I messaged him, and apparently, like at that time, he's back in Algeria on like a vacation, visiting his family and stuff. So I saw his location and I sent him a text asking him, "Oh, are you back? Have you moved back to Algeria?" And he's like, "No, I'm just here for a vacation," and sent me a picture of maybe like a wedding or something that he happened to be at. And he said, "Oh, well, maybe we can talk later on." He's still very much excited, like didn't have any kind of grumblings about the fact that I hadn't called him back the last time when I was in Philly when we were talking before or anything like that. So he told me, when I get home tonight from whatever I'm doing, I will give you a call. We can have a call on WhatsApp. And so he sent me a message, I think around 9 something, and said he was home. Now, mind you, in Algeria, they're 5 hours ahead of where I am. So it's already like 2 o'clock in the morning there. But he said, "I'm going to get a shower and I'll call you back." So I'm thinking by 10 o'clock he will have called me. So 10 o'clock came and went, and he didn't call me until like 11:30 or something. And he apologized. He was like, oh, you know, I'm sorry. I told you I was going to call you, but then I fell asleep. And so I woke up and I decided I was going to call you. So he called me and we talked. And, you know, the connection was kind of bad. He looked basically just like he was in the picture. So there was no issue there. I wasn't 100% sure how attracted to him I was in the pictures, but he was different. And so I said, you know, let me see again, because you never know. Some people are just not photogenic. So anyway, we talked on the phone a little bit, but then I noticed he started talking about, you know, yes, I know when a woman wants to have sex, and, you know, like, and I'm like thinking to myself, well, how did we even get on to this conversation? You know, because like we literally have never spoken on the phone before until that day. And we hadn't had even that much text conversation, not enough to be on the page where, you know, we're talking about that. Like, it's not something that I asked him about. And I'm always a little bit leery about men who bring up anything sexual on the first date, first conversation, anywhere near the beginning, because it always makes me feel like that's the only thing they see me as, is some kind of prospect or possibility, or especially if the man happens to be non-black or something like that, then possible fetish or some kind of bucket list thing, like, oh, you know, I've got to have a black woman before I die or something like that. You know what I mean? And so anyway, it was very off-putting for me. So like, of all the things we could have possibly talked about, like, you know, what is his life like? He told me a little bit about, you know, how he got to the States and he won a visa lottery and whatever else. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Now, that would have been something I would have been interested in diving more into. Not all this stuff about, you know, how well he knows when somebody wants to have sex and, you know, whatever. And, you know, I'm just like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, so it's just like, for me, I was pretty turned off by that too. So, you know, and I've given myself a pass. This video is getting kind of long. Wow. So sometimes I would sort of beat myself up about, you know, maybe I'm just the only person that thinks that getting into sexual conversations too soon is, number one, a bad thing. And number two, not going to really, it's really showing me that the person is not interested in anything with me other than just a sexual conquest. And I used to feel bad, like, you know, people might think of me as a prude or whatever, which it could not be farther from the truth. Like, I like sex just as much as the next person, but I want it to be in the context of, you know, with somebody that's interested in getting to know me as a person. Because to me, that's what makes sex much better, is when you know someone on an intimate level and not just somebody you've just met and you're, you know, trying to get into that stuff already. So anyway, like, when we were getting off the phone, he's putting his lips to the phone and talking about, do you want it? Do you want it? And I'm like, I don't even know you. Like, even if I'm not even interested in giving you a phone kiss right now. Like, we've literally been talking for 10 minutes, you know? So anyway, that is my dating roundup for the last, you know, 3 weeks, essentially this weekend. You know, that's what I've been up to. But before that, I was on a full dating hiatus. So let's see how things go now that I'm back on the island and don't have any traveling plans for a few months now. So we'll see how things go. But thank you for your patience with me. I'm sorry that this video is so long. I've probably rambled on so much. I'll see if I can cut it down as much as possible. But I've got 3 weeks worth of information and feelings and thoughts all pinned up inside of me that just needed to be vomited and regurgitated over this long video. So it is what it is. So I hope you enjoyed anyway. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the video, subscribe and share it with your friends who also might like dating videos. And I'd love to hear how, let me know in the comments, what are your things like? Are people coming on to you sexually very early in the relationship? And if so, how are you handling it? Are you cutting that person off? Or do you just kind of go with the flow and see where it goes? Like, what is your way of handling that? Let me know in the comments. I will see you in the next video. Happy dating, everybody. Bye-bye.